Good morning, church family. Happy Sunday. Welcome to Willow Creek Huntley. We are live before we start broadcasting our services, and it is so good to be with all of you today. We are glad that you tuned in. Just want to, before I have a special guest, I'm just going to tell you, I'm Shannon. I've been on staff for a while here at church, and I am bringing on a special guest in just a few minutes. But before we do that, just want to remind everybody we have communion today. And so if you don't have your communion supplies, this is a great time to kind of search through your pantry and get your communion supplies together. It could be anything. I have a friend who I was talking to yesterday, and he said he may be doing communion with coffee and donuts this morning. And, is that wrong? I don't know. It sounds pretty good to me. So literally, just get whatever you have. But today we will be celebrating communion together. And guys, I'm so glad to be with you today. So glad you're joining us. At the 9 o'clock pre-service live, we talked to Ruth Groth, who leads our prayer team. And sometimes we get some questions. So what is the difference between our prayer team and our care pastors? And today on this show, we are going to talk to my good friend, John Thomas. Now, Andrew, good morning. Thanks for being here. One of the things that I want you to know about John is, one, he's incredible. And two, hey, Deb Wyman, Mandy, good to see you guys. Hey, Kelly, thanks for joining us. One of the reasons why I love John Thomas, there are a million reasons why anybody would love John Thomas, but one of the reasons why is that John is my son's small group leader. So he leads a group of juniors in high school. Yes. And so he has been I don't know about you parents, but for me, anybody who is willing to, one, pour into your kids, love your kids, love them, even knowing who they are, and still build into them. It is the biggest blessing. So John has been a blessing to our family personally because, hey, Papa T, Kelly Gimler says, hey,
hi, Kelly. Hi, Diana.
And that is what we all fondly refer to John Thomas as Papa T. And the other thing that you should know about John is that he is so passionate. He is a pastor at heart, and he leads our response pastor team. John, welcome. Thank you for being with us. Can you tell us a little bit about what does a response pastor do?
Mostly we do nothing, Shannon.
That is not true.
I'm just kidding. So I think the best way to describe what care pastors do or response pastors do is to think of a church like a hospital, and which it is in many ways, right? And there's different functions. If you break a bone, if you have a disease, if you're broke, a hospital's a good example. So I would be considered our group would be considered emergency room doctors. So we meet with people who are in crisis most often. And it could be any kind of a crisis. It could be personal. It could be, relationship crisis, could be finance, could be spiritual. We should talk about that. But that's kind of what we do. So if you show up with a broken arm, I'm going to try to stop the bleeding. If you're bleeding, I'm going to stabilize whatever is happening to you. I'll probably set your arm or something, and then I'll send you to an orthopedic guy, or the same thing for any thing. But that's kind of the best example I could give. We're different from the prayer team in that the prayer team solicits prayers that is open for prayers from anyone at any time for any reason, and we are also, the response pastors are, but there's a more urgent need, when people have really urgent needs, but they're not, let's say they're not aware of what the response pastors do. They'll send it in to Ruth, to the prayer team, and they identify it instantly. If it's like something that needs immediate attention and it's important, then they send that to us and we follow up with that. But you have every single member of our church, every single friend of the members of our church, anybody who hears about our church is welcome. They're all welcome to meet with a response pastor. We also visit people in the hospital. The prayer team is not, they don't visit, they pray. So we visit people in the hospital. We preside over weddings and funerals, all the big life events. So that's kind of what we do. I think you get the picture.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that is most common, at least the requests that I get and kind of forward onto your team, we have a lot of requests for counselors.
Yeah.
So we're not really licensed counselors. We could
Right.
have, one or so on our team, but our job is to kind of listen, come alongside, and then refer people so that they can take the steps that they need to get the help that they need and just then continue to move forward in whatever the situation is that they find themselves in.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about how did you start coming to Willow Huntley and what that was all about?
So the obvious answer to that one is Andrew, the worship leader, is our son.
Do you sing, John? Do you sing?
I know how to sing.
Yeah. Did he get his, can you say, look, he learned everything from me?
No. But when he first started playing the guitar, I taught him a little bit how to play the guitar in short order. He was way beyond what I was able to do. But his mom is musical and she sings. I sing. This is a little known fact, but I used to be a worship pastor myself back in Kalamazoo for I don't know, 6 or 7 years. Yeah, but back in those days, worship pastor said I wasn't really called that. I was just like song leader, and I would walk out on stage with my guitar, and we just start playing along, and we had this. It was the beginning of the movement, to modernize the church, and some guy would show up with a trumpet, somebody else would be playing the piano. It was just. It was wonderful when we were doing it, but compared to what we're doing these days, it was comical, really. It was like, wow.
Well, John, Pastor Todd has said that you and I should have a duet together.
Oh, nice.
And I hope Andrew wouldn't be threatened by that. He might be, feeling a little bit insecure about our abilities to sing and get everybody involved in worship. So, if Andrew might allow that, we're not sure. But I mean, that is something that we can do, John.
That is something. That is something, definitely. I think Andrew would never let us do it because he'd be afraid that we'd shine too bright.
Right.
Yeah,
right. Worship would probably never be the same again.
I can guarantee that.
So, John, you came to Willow Creek Huntley because Andrew's leading worship, and you've been involved in the response pastor role for quite some time. And tell us a little bit about just your heart for people and why does this volunteer role? I'm super, super passionate. I feel like everybody is designed to serve the church in some way. Yes. And this role just seems to be who you are. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when I started on the care pastor team or the worship pastor team, from the very beginning, when we moved from nowhere from Crystal Lake to Huntley in high school, I was approached about doing this, and I was glad to do it. I do have a heart for people. I mean, what you said earlier is I do have the spirit of a pastor. I'm not a preacher per se, but Diana's off camera right now said, "Oh yes, you are."
Oh.
But
I
caring,
think I've heard a word or two from you in my time.
maybe. But I do it in the way that God wired me was to serve, to this doesn't sound too haughty, I hope, but to be God's presence on earth to anybody. So every morning when I wake up, my pastor's soul, I pray that, whoever it is that I'm supposed to talk to today, that we would connect and I could help. And I just feel I would, I think, I'm stumbling over my words. I think a great example is this. So I was so used to praying for, meeting with, visiting, doing pastoral work. When the pandemic hit, I mean, it just came to a screeching halt, and I was like, what am I supposed to do now? I mean, I just don't feel like I can stay or exercise my pastoral strengths without any contact with people at all, other than on the phone. So, I prayed about that, and the Lord kind of prompted me to start a kind of a ministry of its own. It's just kind of a pandemic mystery. But every morning when I get up and I've gone to Facebook, I type just 2 short sentences. Today, let's say, for instance, this morning, today is Sunday. How can I pray for you? And the response has been alarmingly good. People either answer back on Facebook and ask for prayers. And then also, they'll go on Messenger if it's private concern. They're concerned about it going public. By the way, you should know that anybody who comes to a prayer warrior or a response pastor should have no concerns that whatever they share with us is shared with anybody else. They don't.
It's one of the things I love about our teams. I feel like one of the reasons why people feel so comfortable coming to the response pastor team and to the prayer team is because you guys just have placed the highest value on confidentiality. People are going through things that are so hard.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's so true.
And I think that God has shown up in crazy ways on Facebook. You just typing in those 2 sentences. It's like you praying in the morning, you putting it out there, and then God really is showing up with you and for the other folks who are finding themselves in, a hard, it could even just be in that moment or that day.
Sure.
Just how God works. And I really feel like, and I know that you agree with this, like we can't physically see Jesus here on earth, but he uses people to show others the love of Christ. And that's what I think about all the time through your response pastor team and all the things that you guys are doing.
Sure. Spiritually, especially in churches, talk is cheap. You can tell people I'm going to pray, and most people just don't. I mean, it's a way of expressing sympathy. Or even, and this sounds weird, but even in witnessing to people, talk is cheap. There's certainly power in sharing God's word.
Yes.
Sharing the plan of salvation and getting people to make decisions. But most people are like, I don't know who you are. How do I know what's going on with you? And when you're making that presentation, when you're trying to pray for people, the most effective thing you can do is something physical, a good deed, show up.
So true.
Yeah. And once I just, it's all about, and this is not, you don't work your way into heaven, but you can work a lot of other people's way into heaven in a way just by serving them. They become closer and closer to God, or they have a breakthrough, instant breakthrough. Yeah. But I think response pastors are a special breed of cats.
Yes, I definitely agree. And I know that we have about 5 minutes before service starts. So I just want to wrap up by saying that John, you and your team, especially during this most challenging and unique season, like to your point, I think we are all feeling as pastors, like, how do we do this in this new season? But, people are reaching out. Your team is responding. And so people are feeling loved and cared for during a time when, up is down and down is up and, everything just seems so chaotic. So I just have been, like I said before, so personally blessed by you, still blessed because of all of the ways that you even serve our junior high school boys. The way that you lead your team is incredible. Your heart for pastoring people is like none other. So what I want to just tell our congregation is that it is easy to get in touch with a response pastor. All you have to do is text WCH Care to 94090, and John and his team will receive that request. Right. We are about 4 minutes out from service, and so I just want to remind you, we are celebrating communion today, so gather your communion supplies, find a comfy spot to sit in, get a snack, and we're going to get ready for worship. And John, I just want to thank you so, so much for how you serve our church, how you just have a heart for God, and how you love others. I'm so glad that you can join us today.
Thank you, Shannon.
All right, guys, enjoy worship. We'll see you soon. Take care.